So the most common method of studying I have seen people use over the years is rereading, summarising, and highlighting. There's a wealth of evidence from various research studies which proves this passive method of learning is ineffective and time-consuming. In this video we'll discuss evidence-based methods of studying which is more effective in learning and retaining new content in less time. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Noyan, a family doctor based in the UK. Let's first talk about the poor techniques of studying, which is most commonly summarising, highlighting, and rereading. We'll then go on to the good learning techniques, that is active recall and practice testing. Finally, we'll cover some practical tips on how to apply these methods to learn more efficiently. The timestamp for various sections of the video are below if you want to skip to any specific parts. I've been a doctor for 9 years now, and my revision technique has evolved significantly since the beginning of my university days. Initially, I was making the same mistake as most people, taking notes in lectures, then summarising them, highlighting them into these beautiful colours, and rereading it again and again until it stuck. This meant I was giving more and more of my free time revising. Towards the final years of my university, I came across evidence-based methods of learning, and this changed my life ever since. First, let's talk about the things to avoid when learning new content. Let's start with taking notes or summarising. One of the psychology review papers published in 2013 by Professor Dunlosky and his colleagues, where they looked at hundreds of different research papers on 10 different methods of studying. And they've scored each method they gave them a relative score of low utility, meaning it's the least effective method, moderate utility, and high utility being the most effective method. They have listed summarising, highlighting, and rereading to be of low utility. Although summarising is not the worst method if done properly, however, studies have shown that most people are not good at summarising effectively. This is what they had to say about summarising in this review paper. On the basis of available evidence, we rate summarization as low utility. Rereading is the method of choice by most people. Research shows that although it can help to some degree, it's time-consuming and not very effective. This is a quote from Professor Dunlosky's paper. We rate rereading as having low utility. When compared with some other learning techniques, rereading is also typically much less effective. This brings me to highlighting, a method that's popular amongst most people, including myself. I used to highlight my notes when I was in the early days of university into this beautiful artwork, but actually there's no evidence to show that any of this helps with learning. In fact, this is the quote from the paper. Most students report rereading and highlighting, yet these techniques do not consistently boost students' performance. So other techniques should be used in their place. He goes on to say, on the basis of available evidence, we rate highlighting and underlying as having low utility. In most situations, highlighting does little to boost performance. I'm not suggesting that we should suddenly stop using summarising, highlighting, and rereading, but it's important to recognize that they're not the most effective methods. I think we talked enough about the things that we shouldn't be doing. Let's now move on to the things that we should be doing. Most researchers support the use of active recall or active retrieval as one of the most effective methods of studying. It's where we answer a question on a given topic without any information or notes. It's an active process which forces us to think about the answers. This engages our brain and supposed to help us stimulate memory formation during the learning process, in comparison with a passive method such as rereading. During this process, hopefully we can retrieve information deeply embedded in our brain. If we get the questions wrong, we're more likely to remember it the next time round. This is what Professor Dunlosky had to say in his paper. Practice testing and distributed practice received high utility assessments because they benefit learners of different ages and abilities and have been shown to boost students' performance across many criterion tasks and even in educational contexts. There are a wealth of research that has been done on this subject matter, and they all demonstrate the power of active recall and practice testing, which is a form of active recall. Another review paper which outlines the 3 fundamentals that benefit learning: the testing effect, active recall, and spaced repetition. This is the advice from this paper. When students learn factual knowledge, they should test themselves while learning, actively recall information, and retest the facts at expanding time intervals to make learning most effective. Essentially, what's being said is that when we're learning, we should create questions and test our knowledge as we go along, and retest at regular but increasing intervals. There are many other studies that have been done in the subject matter, which I will reference in the description below. I will now discuss practical tips on how to apply this active recall strategy with our revision techniques. One way I've been using this method for my most recent exam was by signing up to a question bank online and reading the topic briefly on it, and then testing myself by doing the relevant questions. The questions that I would get wrong would get registered on this question bank, and every so often I would go back and revisit them at increasing intervals and to ensure to consolidate my learning. It's amazing how we remember the questions that we get wrong. Another platform that works similar to the online question bank is an app called Anki, which uses flashcards with questions and with answers on the back. The great thing about Anki is that you can also create your own questions with answers in the back. Especially if you're struggling with any specific topics, you can start creating your own bank of questions that's going to help you reinforce that learning. Depending on how difficult the question is, you can rate it. Depending on how you rated it, it will be presented back to you at regular increasing intervals to refresh your memory about the information to help retain that knowledge. A concept called spaced repetition, which I'm happy to cover in another video. I've also found when reading through materials, instead of simply just reading through it, I create questions for myself as I go along, and I found this to be so beneficial in helping me to remember information and engage my brain. I use a note-taking application called Notion, which has a toggle function to hide the answers to the questions I created for myself to learn more efficiently. I hope this has helped you in improving your learning technique. If you enjoyed this topic, you might also enjoy my video on how to stop procrastinating, which should be linked somewhere here. Please give this video a big thumbs up and consider subscribing. This will help me make more weekly videos in this channel. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.